People, they don't realize that they need help. And I'll testament to that too. I like to
Mhm.
figure it out myself and I don't always like to ask for help. But to be able to say, okay, I don't have this skill set. I do need to have someone at least compliment me or help me figure it out.
Hey, welcome back. Today we have Katie DeBoer, owner of a residential construction business, founder of Faith and Freedom Homeschool Co-op, and also a Kent County Commissioner. So welcome, Katie. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Why don't we get started with talking about your history? What's your origin story? What was little Katie like? Where was she from?
Yeah, so I grew up in Kentwood and with good, loving parents. We didn't have a ton of money, honestly, pretty humble beginnings. Went to East Kentwood, had all of my schooling there, and I'm the youngest of three girls.
Okay.
I would say as a kid, I was a good kid. Like I was obedient. Like I didn't challenge my parents a ton. Um, yeah, so that's my origin story.
That's what everybody says, you know.
I'm sure I'm
I
sure
was
I
a good
challenged them in
kid.
some ways, like
No.
because all kids are challenging, right? But
Sure. Yeah, as a dad of three girls, they've been pretty good too. So anyway, so you went to East Kentwood. Did you go to college, education? What was growing up like?
yep, we were very involved in our church growing up, and I ended up going to Cornerstone for my bachelor's degree. I got a social work degree, but I didn't stay in the social work field a ton. I really have the heart for that, and I have the heart for people, and I like service. But my skills and my mind is more geared for like analytical careers, and so I ended up being in chemical labs, testing active ingredients in drugs, and then I ended up in an engineering lab as well.
So how do you go from social work to a chemical lab tech?
Yeah, so it was pretty easy for me actually. Like it was somewhat natural. I would say for the social work, that my hardest time was just the level of emotional distraught in the
Okay.
industry.
Yeah.
Like I interacted with these people that they didn't have food, and so I remember at my internship, I would go through my college dorm and try to get food for some of these people um, who I was serving at my social work internship, and like just the amount of as a single woman, like at the time, um, the challenges of just trying to help support and seeing a lot of these struggles. I remember I had one resident who her sister was her mother. So her dad raped the
Mm,
daughter, and and like those kind of horrible stories, and like how do you help and serve people
right.
where they have these deep, severe, catastrophic issues. For me, when I was a young woman, like that was hard for me. So, and I really liked the stimulation of the mind, like just the challenges of
Mhm.
trying to figure things out. And so, even though I didn't have a chemistry degree, I did end up testing at Perigo and Amway's chemical lab, and I enjoyed my time there. And then I transitioned from there, got married during that time, transitioned into Steelcase, and then I worked in the engineering lab there, and then I ended up doing safety compliance at Steelcase.
Okay. So what did safety compliance involve?
So that was basically we dealt with our compliance certifications for all of our basically smart furniture. Um,
Okay.
so our smart furniture, mostly that has electricity running through it, right?
Hmm.
And some of the other furniture that you just have, standards like like UL, like Intertech, all of those.
Sure.
Those are U.S. based, but Steelcase provides for the entire world, and
Hmm.
so all of the all of the other countries have their different types of certifications, and sometimes they're consolidated with different countries, and so we had all of these certifications, and at the time they were housed on hard drives. They were housed like sometimes people would have a shared file, like it was just all over the place, and so someone would be asking, I need to see the certificate of compliance if we wanted to have a new if someone was interested, a new vendor wanted to see it. And so it would take forever to try to find all of these
Yeah.
certifications. So when I was there, I said, we need something. We need a database. And the IT department at the time couldn't handle the workload. And so I just took it upon myself and figured out how to make a database. So, and I had already experience in web development. And so it wasn't too difficult for me because I had a little bit of coding knowledge, different languages. But so I got pretty involved with, I used Microsoft Access because it's a very accessible database system. And, you know, like a lot of people don't like it because it is a very easy way to learn database structure. But so I used Visual Basic and then, you know, SQL for all of your search queries.
So what time period is this?
Yeah. So let's think. I got married in 2011 and had my first daughter in 2013.
Okay.
At that time, I was at Amway's lab, working third shift, pregnant. That was hard. I just did not sleep during the day.
With the kid, because of the kiddo?
Pregnant. Well,
pregnant,
during the pregnancy, it was really hard working third shift because I just could not sleep during the day. I tried, and I probably swore, used foul language more than I had ever used during that time, during that pregnancy. But so that, and then I had another child at 2015, my son. That was when I was at Steelcase. And then I had my last daughter in 2018 while I was still at Steelcase. And shortly after I had my third, I tried to find a good nanny, and that didn't work out. And I couldn't find reliable childcare. So I ended up quitting Steelcase and stayed home with the kids. And that was a transition myself, going from corporate world to being a stay-at-home mom. But I was really thankful that I did that because in 2019, I left the corporate world and then COVID happened, right? So there was no way I was going to be able to handle working and being home with the kids when schooling wasn't reliable.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough, coming home, I came from the corporate world, came home with my daughters after we had our second one, just for similar, it's just hard to manage both, and you don't bring home a lot of extra money.
Right.
Because daycare is so expensive, and you drop them off and you just see all the things you would do better. And so, so you went from there, you came home with the kids. So now your husband has a business at this time, or what's he?
When we were dating, he started a hardscaping business, which is outdoor construction. So it's patios, retaining walls, outdoor kitchen areas, water features, all of the hard stuff of landscaping. And really, it's a form of construction. And here's my spiel about hardscaping. If you want a retaining wall, or if you want a patio, or you want some type of outdoor construction, hire someone that knows what they're doing, because landscapers really don't know how to do it. They're not building experts. If you want a patio or retaining wall, find someone that knows construction, because it's a lot more like construction than it is like landscaping. So that's my little spiel about
that. Actually makes sense. You know, you don't think of that very often, and people are often confused.
Well, and then you see all of these failing retaining walls. Well, honestly, it was probably done by a landscaper that didn't have the construction knowledge and experience. So, but back to that. So in 2010, we were dating. He started that business. I was working full time, and I was providing, the money for us because he was building a business and really didn't make much money, for the first couple of years. But it grew quite a bit. I mean, he's an expert craftsman. He's incredibly gifted. He's a genius. He's a mechanical genius, construction genius, and he has a visual mind too, where he can see the beauty. And I can't think in pictures.
Yeah.
So I'm terrible at any of that stuff, but my husband is very gifted in that way. And I tease him sometimes that he's fancy because he likes nice things. He just likes things, he likes quality, you know, so.
Makes sense. So he's kind of the sole breadwinner at that point when you come home.
Now he is, yes.
Now he is, okay. And so, the kids kind of get off into school. Did you, and this is what, 2019, 2020. So you eventually kind of started working in his business?
Yeah. So when I left Steelcase in 2019, I decided to help more with the hardscape business. And we also had built our own house. I'm trying to think when it was. In 2018, we had finished. We pulled the permit, I think, in 17, and then finished in 18. And I was 8.5 months pregnant when we moved in. It was our goal
Oh,
to
yeah.
like get in before the baby.
Yeah.
And maybe I was 8 months. I'm not quite sure. Maybe it was 7.5. But I just remember being really big and moving all these boxes, and people are like, "You're gonna deliver that baby right in front of everyone." Like, but it was fine. And we got in, and so we built our own house. And at that time, I had no idea like how to build a house. I mean, my husband knew how to build a house, but he also didn't understand all of the regulations that's required and all of the permitting and all of the, stuff that you have to know outside of just actually building the house. So for me, I started with the zoning ordinance in Cannon Township, and I started reading it, and my mind like went like, this is so much stuff right in here. Like, this is a crazy zoning ordinance. And then I find out, well, all of the townships are like that. They all have all of these regulations just about where you can put your house, and all of like how tall it has to be, how many square footage, all of that stuff. And so that was really like my first interaction with government, because I was just kind of, local government, I would say. It was just kind of mind-boggling. Like, this is crazy. This is what townships do. They oversee the development of all of this property and acreage, and so that kind of sparked my interest a little bit. Also because we saw the equity that we gained by building our own house. Made sense financially. And so I ended up getting my builder's license. I also ended up getting my MBA during that time of leaving corporate world. I think I got my builder's license actually while I was still at Steelcase. But yeah, so I got trained, to help out with the construction business a lot more.
The business side kind of.
hmm
So, kind of looking back to there, what lessons did you learn? Like building your house, I contracted my own house, put a lot of sweat equity into it as well.
Sure.
Anything you do different there, or maybe lessons that, might want to share with people trying to do the same thing.
Yeah, I honestly think my husband and I, it was stressful, right? Building your own house, but it was really rewarding. And it was kind of refining in our marriage, I think, of like, we have to communicate better. We have to be on the same page, like, because there's so many things that overlapped, even though he was doing the actual construction and I was overseeing more of the business side of it. So I think that for us, like that pressure of refining our marriage and making it stronger was a really good situation to be in. And it's helped us because we are even more like related in business areas now. Like we just have more going on and more, the business has developed over the years. And so to have that good foundational relationship with my husband, like it's required to be successful. And so I think for me, just that building our own house was really the foundational element that we needed to be able to be successful together in business.
Yeah, I mean, not everybody can work with their spouse in business.
Right.
I don't know that,
It's challenging, right? I mean, my husband has a different communication style than I do. And so we have to figure it out and make it work, but it's helped us in our marriage too.
So talking about that, different communication styles, which is common. I mean, husband and wife, often we're complementary. We're very different in some areas and shared values. Were there any books or educational things that you did during that time? Did you have a mentor? What did you rely on because self-awareness, just seeing that and understanding that, that's important to be able to communicate and to be able to work together, because it's not only a business, it's also a marriage. It's also raising kids. Anything kind of that you leaned on?
Yeah. So I would say during the time when I left corporate world, I kind of had an identity crisis because I was a stay-at-home mom. Nobody really knew anything that I was doing, right? And I feel like a lot of stay-at-home moms are in that situation where they're like, I've lost myself, especially when they were in corporate world, and now it's all about the kids. And yeah, I had ways to still be involved and to have a little bit of business, work to do, which I enjoyed. But at the same time, I wasn't seen, right? I was behind the scenes. My husband was the one out in the field doing all of the real work. And I was the one in the home office on the computer, and then also, over taking care of kids and stuff like that, which is fine. But it was really difficult for me reconciling that, because I did kind of want to be seen, you know, a
Mhm.
little bit. And I did want, I don't know, I wanted some more acknowledgement of all the work that I was doing than just my husband saying thank you.
Yeah.
And that's a pride thing, right? It's my own self saying I think I'm worth more and not relying on the Lord Jesus Christ to give me my value. Like it's something that it's incredibly humbling, right? Not being seen, not necessarily being rewarded like overtly, I guess, for all of your efforts. So for me, I would say that that time really started, well, I think a lot of other situations humbled me, but that situation in particular, I think, was a humbling experience.
Mhm.
And it also forced both my husband and myself to adapt to each other a little bit better, because we all have jagged edges, right? And sometimes they hurt.
Yeah.
And especially when you're working so intimately with someone, you have to learn how to adapt to them. And so, and that goes for me and for my husband, our jagged edges. You know, those have to be refined, and we have to continue to try to, you know, make it a little bit more
Yeah.
moldable.
Maybe
So
work together.
I think like humbling and just adapting. I think that answered your question.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it sounds like faith played a part in that.
Sure.
Sometimes there's friendships and kind of, self-education type things.
Yeah, I don't really, I'll be honest. I'm pretty internal
Yeah,
as far as I want to figure it out myself.
I can tell,
Um,
which is a great
yeah,
skill to have.
but and I don't mind like sharing honestly or being open with anyone, but I also have never, well, I should probably, but I have never really sought a ton of mentors or
Mhm.
a lot of self-education other than me just doing it. And sometimes I think that's the best education, right? Because if I can't understand something, like I remember I had to learn QuickBooks, I had to learn how to do a profit loss statement, I had to learn how to build websites, you know, I'm just going to throw myself in there. And if I sink or swim, hopefully I swim. If I sink, then I'll find ways to figure it out, or I'll find another resource, or then maybe I'll have to humble myself a little more and reach out for help of a mentor or someone.
Yeah,
And so yeah, I don't mind being open and honest, but at the same time, I'm pretty stubborn in the sense of I want to do it myself,
sure.
because sometimes that's the best education too. But
I mean, sometimes there's not enough of that in the world, frankly. Like people constantly rely. I see that sometimes, often in kids, they're afraid to fail, so they're afraid to start. They're afraid
oh,
to
I'm not afraid of
figure things
failing.
out.
And honestly, that's why most people become successful, because I didn't grow up with money. I didn't grow up with any influence or any like, I don't know, power or authority or anything. I was just a nobody and a city kid,
Yeah,
you know? And so to challenge yourself and to know that you can fail. I mean, I tried to doing a couple of business ventures myself and I failed royally at them, but
what were they? Do you mind getting into that a little bit?
well, so I tried selling stickers
Okay.
on Etsy.
My kids have bought tons of stickers over the years.
Yeah,
So.
right. I tried selling stickers on Etsy and that didn't work out. And then in 2019, I did Rockford Riddler, which had
Yeah.
mild success.
Hmm.
But I would also say that came from a point of me wanting to be seen, and it
Yeah.
was not the right mindset or heart. It was me being frustrated with my husband getting glory, honestly, and me not having someone or something to do outside of the home.
Sure.
And so I ran that in 2019, and it was mildly successful. But it also was too much for our family.
Yeah.
And I couldn't hire, and I couldn't keep employees, and it was just a ton of burden on us as a family, and it was not right. And so I did want to run it again in 2020. I attempted, I worked at it,
Hmm.
and then COVID hit. And then I was like, yeah, okay, that's I already had felt convicted a little bit, but I didn't follow through with what I thought God wanted me to do.
Yeah.
I wanted to do my own, pursue my own, and not humble myself, right? And not do what I knew was better for my family. So, but 2020 hit, and so God said, "Oh, you suck," you know, like learn this lesson now. do it now. And so since then, I've loved that little business, right? I just loved it. I thought it was so fun. People really enjoyed it.
What is it? Let's
Yeah,
real
okay.
quick time out for the audience.
Yeah. So Rockford Riddler is a little, it's like an escape game, escape room played in the city of Rockford. And I hid clues all over the businesses. And it also includes like clues that are a little bit different. So like I tested in chemical labs. So some of it is acid-base chemistry where like there's a hidden message and you use a base and the indicate, like some of that is a scientific kind of
Sure.
clue and they're different. I haven't seen a lot of them in escape rooms and stuff. So, and I do a ton of escape rooms. I think they're fun. So that's what it is. So I let it go. I told God, okay, yeah, that's a clear sign that you don't want me to do Rockford Riddler right now. But I've had it still in my soul. Like, God, I really want to do this silly little business because I think it's really fun and really cool. And it's honestly, I feel like it's my mind out there. And I don't know, it's just something I can share with other people. And so I let it go, whatever. And then I talked to my husband about it and I realized I can't do it on my own. And that's not his thing. He doesn't like that stuff. He's not a person that wants to sit there and solve puzzles. Like he really likes, he's the mechanical, hands-on type of person. He needs to stay busy with his body. Like he needs to do things. He doesn't need to just sit and he's not really a reader or anything either. So, so I said, all right, God, I need a business partner to do this again. And then you came along, Alden. And so now we're doing it together. So
and it was interesting because of all people, like I had a similar interest and actually started a little something that comparable that several years ago until both of my partner and I just got too busy with our core businesses to really take a hold of it and run with it. So I'm excited about it too.
Yeah. And I think like it's kind of like a side thing, right? It's something that's really fun and hopefully will be profitable and great for the community. But it's also something that like it's kind of a side business.
Yeah.
It's hopefully not going to take over too much of our time and doing other things. So.
Well, it's nice. It's I think we've streamlined some things with it that'll be helpful. But it's also has some areas that kind of I think serve the community in a sense that quite often everybody's on their phones and just doing stuff at home alone. And I think the nice thing about this is it offers people an opportunity to get together, to get around town, get outside, use their brain, use their tactile senses. And I think that we kind of need more of that. And so I'm happy that we're going to be able to provide some of that opportunity at least.
Definitely. People off of their screens and doing something active that's good for your mind and good for your body. You get a little exercise doing it too. So
cool. So we have. So you moved in. You started doing some of the business in your construction business, and you had to figure it out along the way.
Yeah, I mean, I hand calculated payroll taxes when we hired our first employee. Like we didn't have the money yet to like hire an accountant and hire all of these professional services. And so I did it. I learned how to build websites. I learned how to do QuickBooks. I learned how to, do payroll taxes. So, and I still actually run payroll every week, which I did do it this. But
important to keep those people paid.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just me trying it, and I'm thankful that I've learned because I didn't know early on when I was younger that I was smart. I didn't believe it. I didn't have that confidence or anything. And it really wasn't until my mid-20s, I'd say, where I realized I was smart. And I would say at that time too, I realized all of the things that we could do in life that nobody does, right? Because they're afraid of failing.
Sure.
And so to just kind of throw yourself into something and try to figure it out, it's a fun challenge. Like it's a really fun challenge. And I think that also is like, you're disciplined enough. That's how you are going to excel and succeed and get out of the pits of day-to-day grind, right? Of I have to do this job because I have to pay my bills. Which, but then when you start to explore a little bit and use your limited time that you have to pursue other initiatives. And if you can succeed at one of them, I mean, yeah, you're going to fail, absolutely. But if you can keep going and try, there's one of them eventually you'll succeed at. So
One thing I think is that's encouraging. Like you were able to jump in, but you didn't go to school for payroll taxes or for accounting or for all these basic business operations. And I think a lot of businesses and people get caught up on that. I see this in construction a lot where you'll have some great craftsmen, very skilled. They can talk to people well, even they can build an awesome house or a hardscape or whatever project. But the business side, in terms of communicating with the clients, accounts payable, receivable, they often struggle in that because it's a whole different skill set.
it is.
And it also shows that you can just jump in. I still think there's a big need for that. Like from a business standpoint, I think there's opportunity for somebody to be able to come alongside
Yeah.
people like that. But I mean, to me, it's encouraging that somebody afraid to start a business or to jump in can just figure it out. Like you can get in and figure it out.
I mean, it's hard. And some people don't have the skill set to just understand how to, I mean, it's not even understanding, but have the skill set to even learn it, right? Because my husband, he has dyslexia, pretty severe dyslexia. For him to do some of this stuff is incredibly challenging. And, there are different people and we all have different strengths. So my husband, if he has a weakness, which I have a weakness where I'm not visual, I can't build anything, I can't understand how things work with pictures. Like, don't show me pictures. I can't learn that way. Then you need a complement, right?
Sure.
You need someone. And I think too, people are very scared to have business partners, especially like outside of your spouse, right? Because there's usually a pretty firm, solid relationship there already. Sometimes not,
Sure.
in our world. But, people, they don't realize that they need help. And I'll testament to that too. I like to figure it out myself and I don't always like to ask for help. But to be able to say, okay, I don't have this skill set. I do need to have someone at least compliment me or help me figure it out so that I can actually, we have to rely on each other. That's, it's like keep pushing yourself up with another person. What's the iron sharpens iron?
Yeah.
There you go.
Partnerships I've often over the years kind of been back and forth on them. You hear different things.
Sure.
They're a horrible thing. There's a lot of tropes with that. But one thing that I found is I can only do so much on my own. And by partnering, whether it's even hiring people to help or whether it's fully partnering with somebody who has complementary skills, somebody that's going to add some accountability and just keep motivation and keep tasks moving forward like that, 1 + 1 = 3 or 5. It can.
Right.
And so partnerships really, and actually more recently, the books I've been reading and listening to the past couple of years have really talked about that, the who, not how, and
Right.
10xing, it really requires multiple people.
Right.
And you get much, much greater results. You gotta also refine those skills.
Right.
Of communication and working with a partner. Like you gotta humble yourself a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think that's legitimate. Yeah, I definitely would never, ever, ever have a construction business without my husband. I can't do construction. I don't have the skills for it. So to be able to support, and, keep pushing yourself up with another person. Iron sharpens iron.
So moving on, we kind of covered the business here. We covered COVID
Yep.
a little bit, kind of changing things a little. Anything more you want to talk about that before we kind of move into?
No, I think that's most of it. I would say when I started learning more of the business stuff, I threw myself in there, sink or swim. And then I got my MBA. And I got my MBA with finance concentration, mostly because I wanted that credential for our business to be like, oh, there's someone that knows how to do business. They have an MBA. It really was not because I needed it to know how to run the business or the business side of things. I had already learned QuickBooks and all of that stuff. So I mean, I think higher education is great because it opens doors. But other than that, if you need it to open a door, then get it. But at the same time, higher education can limit you financially. And to be able to just, just jump into something and learn it, if you don't need the credential or the education, do it, right? I mean, you can't rely on education to know how to do things. Really, it gives you a great foundation and knowledge, but it doesn't teach you how to do it.
Right.
So I don't know. That's my little spiel about higher education, I guess.
Oh, I second that. I mean, I spent a lot of money back in the day, a lot of time and effort in a degree that, I use a small portion of it. And some of that was super valuable. And a lot of that was sort of a waste of time and money. So you take what you can and move on. But until you're out in the world, most things you learn change, especially in today's world with technology and best practices. Things change within a year or two quite often. So until you're actually doing it, education can give you that background. But you're going to always continue to have to educate.
Right.
Like tax laws change every year.
Right.
So you got to learn, what do I got to do to change to, make sure I'm in compliance with everything. And so anything you'd share with somebody else, like, hey, just starting a business, like that you might start over, any recommendations, like even yourself for 5 years ago, like you did a lot of stuff and you figured a lot of things, anything that might save somebody some time and heartache?
I would say my husband is the skills and I'm more of like the smarts and like figuring out the business stuff. And you need both, right? If you have a great skill, you're going to have to learn a ton of things. It's not just about being an expert in a certain field. You have to be versatile and you have to understand all of the elements that go into running a successful business, because you have to, pay taxes. You have, there's a lot of moving parts and there's a lot of change in compliance and the continual education that you cannot just focus on one certain. I mean, if you're in like a service industry and you're incredible at the service industry, that's wonderful. You're an expert in your field, that's great. But at the same time, you have to be quite well-rounded to fully be successful at a business, I'd say. Or you're going to have to pay a ton of money for all the professional help. And even then, sometimes you have good accountants, sometimes you have bad accountants, sometimes you have good attorneys, sometimes you have bad attorneys. So, just figuring all of that out. And we also, I would say that I provided a lot of legal support for the business over the years too. And I don't have any, legal education, but it's just all, figuring it out as you go.
Great.
We did go through one business lawsuit. So not we sued another business, but our business sued another business. So that was another like refining, I think, you have a difficulty or you have a hard situation and there's pressure, right? And what comes out? Because your character is going to show, right?
Sure.
Is it going to be good character or is it going to be bad character? And you can even say that about your marriage, right? So there's pressure there and you're having a hardship. What comes out? Is your marriage solid? Is it gonna, or is it not? And when that pressure happens, it refines us and it can make things better or it can make things crumble.
Right.
And, so many times all of the hardships that we have are wonderful learning experiences and opportunities to become a better person and I'm Christian, to become a better follower of Jesus, because those hardships, those are the teachers, and those failures, those are what you need to succeed. So I don't know. I think just we need to remember that, this is a horrible situation, but at the same time, I wonder what I'm going to come out like. I wonder what I'm going to learn. I wonder how God's going to teach me and refine me to become a better follower of Jesus. Because that's what I want. That's why, is it James 1 that says, consider it pure joy whenever you face trials of many kinds, because the testing of your faith develops perseverance. You come out better if you allow God to, if you can let God use it for that.
Absolutely. Like all the best lessons of my life came from hardship.
Right.
I remember those. I recall all those. And I think that's the same for most people
Yeah.
if you really look back.
We're so anti difficulty in our culture today. And that's so backwards from what it should be. You know, that's, yeah. Well, I'll just stop my spiel there, I guess, on that.
Good. No, it's great. Great info. So, that came along. And so now let's tell us a little bit more about Faith and Freedom, your homeschool co-op.
Okay.
How did that get started?
Yeah. So that got started, well, COVID hit, right? And that is so hard. It was so hard for any parent, right? And these hard choices of what do I do and how do I, like, if you're working, how do I work? How can I educate my child still? Like, that just totally threw us all that was a hardship, right?
Yeah.
For a lot of people. And my oldest child, my oldest girl, she's has sensory processing disorder. And you would probably never know it anymore. She's just a little quirky, I think, with things. But I used to have to physically restrain her every day.
Oh, wow.
And she was very violent. And I remember, this is probably TMI, but I'm going to share it. I remember when I had my last daughter, my oldest was 5, throwing a tantrum. And these are tantrums, like she would throw up, she would punch walls, she would get, like, you had to do something. You couldn't just let her go to her room and scream it out because she would, like, hit her head or punch the wall,
Yeah.
And I mean, it was like she was acting autistic, and autism is a sensory type of thing too. So, but I remember after having my daughter, and I would have to physically restrain her, and I had a newborn, and I would have to restrain, and I'd wet myself
Oh.
all the time because I had just had a baby, and I had to, like, I can't have her hurting my newborn and my 2 or 3-year-old, however old Hunter was, 3, I think. So, but it was just, that was a hard situation. Again, like, that was difficult. And honestly, for those parents who have to physically restrain their children, and I only have this much level of some of that difficulty, like, that's hard. It's hard. And you so love your kids and you want them to excel and succeed and to like life and to, I don't know, just be good people and follow Jesus and all of the stuff that a parent wants for a child. So she's brilliant, though, my oldest daughter. She's in pre-algebra and she's 10 in math right now. Homeschooling for the win.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's got a math mind for sure. Totally logical, like very, she's really smart. And so that COVID happened, she had to wear a mask. And I had just gotten her, like, we went through a couple years of occupational therapy and, like, how to help her learn how to brush her hair because she would scream, how to brush your teeth. She would, like, all of those sensory stimulations that she couldn't handle. And so then when she had to wear a mask, like, I had to cut all of the tags out of her clothes. And, like, you want my child to wear a mask? Like, that just, it tore my heart.
Yeah.
And because I had just gotten through so much therapy for her. And then she's back into hating life and wants to die because she can't handle the sensory stimulation. And so that was 2020 when they shut us down. And then 2020 to 2021, she wore a mask that school year. And I got the doctor's note, right? I did all the things that said that my child could take her mask off if she needed to, but I know my child and she likes to obey. She doesn't want to cause any issue or get special treatment or, and the school didn't even know that she had sensory processing because she was obedient and she's brilliant. And then she would come home at the end of the day and she wanted to die and she would be irate and throw these tantrums. And that was hard.
Yeah, I just can't even. No, that's all right. No, it was a hard time for everybody.
Yeah.
And, I saw a lot of things during that time period that, changed my thoughts
Yeah.
on how the school system's run
Yeah.
as well.
So the fall of 2021, right? They pulled that last minute mask mandate. And I said, I cannot be a good mother and put a mask on my child again. I just cannot do it. And so I made the decision to pull my kids. And I remember like my relationship with God at that point was so intimate. Oh, I'm crying again. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. No.
Because I was so desperate, right?
Mhm.
And when you're in that hard, desperate situation, God is loud, which is incredible. So, hold on, I'm gonna contain myself for a second.
Yeah. Now, protecting your kids is
Tissue? No, I'm not gonna do any tears. I'm gonna blink them back. Okay. So in 2021, they pulled that last minute mask mandate. I pulled my kids. My middle child, my son, he was probably fine with a mask, but he is also ADHD and just has to move constantly. And so it was just hard for him in school to sit there. And I was, at the time, I was giving him Adderall because he just couldn't sit still. My husband has ADHD too. He's been on Adderall all his life. Well, it's like 6 or 7. So,
Sure.
So I pulled my kids and I was like, I don't know how to homeschool. I don't know anything about the education system other than I've got a fancy degree. I've got a master's degree. But teach a kid how to read? Like, I can do calculus. I can teach you calculus, but I cannot teach a kid how to read. That's scary for me. And so I was like, God, I don't know what to do. Like, I cannot put them in a school right now. I can't do it. I don't know what to do. And so God said, well, then find your village, right? Find your community, find your support. And so it was totally a selfish reason why I started Faith and Freedom, because I needed help.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it alone. And I knew I couldn't do it alone. And so a bunch of moms, a bunch of parents came together and started something. And we're still going to this day. It's shifted a ton. We started at 4 days a week. And it was most of us all came out of the public schools.
Yeah.
And so it was a kind of a different culture than most of the homeschool traditional culture. It was public school kids that didn't fit into the compliance box for the public schools. So pulled the kids, started the co-op. We started with 40 kids in my house.
Wow. Holy cow.
Yeah. I was really nervous at that time because I know zoning ordinances now, and I know I was breaking a bunch of zoning ordinances, but we found a church in a week and a half after being at my house. And it's been another like struggle here and there, with learning how to navigate through some of that. I've stepped back a lot, and we've got some wonderful moms that know what they're doing. Shout out to Jackie. She's my good friend and
Nice.
knows what she's doing, and I'm thankful for her. I won't share her last name because she'd be mad at me if I.
Right.
But so it's been incredible, and it's been a struggle bus sometimes, but it's also at the end of the day, the kids. It's what it's about. And you went to our homeschool co-op, even that 2021 to 2022 school year, and they were happy.
Yeah.
Those kids, like, they had their childhood back, right?
Right.
And you go to a public school, you can't even get in the door, and they're masked and unhappy. And I'm not saying happiness is really what it should be about necessarily, but for a kid, like, that's pretty important to be able to learn that you don't have so much hindering you, right? And so just that allows you to learn and grow, and allowed our kids to learn and grow. And I would say some of our kids, like my daughter, she's 10 years old. She would be so bored now in math if she was at the public schools, if I didn't push her in math a little bit. And she's at the level that she can handle now. She's incredible in that. And if I wasn't homeschooling, she'd be bored out of her mind. Like, she's got it. Like, she knows all of her timetables very quickly. Like, it just makes sense in her head. So that's been a very good thing for us to homeschool and to have that support and that community. We found we have a village, you know,
Yeah, that's awesome.
and all of those moms that we do it together, they're wonderful people. And they care about all of those kids there too. And it's not just a mom thing, right? Or me thing, right? For my kids. It's all of these other moms that love my kids and
Right.
help them and teach them. And it's just cool.
That's great. One thing, I know there's a lot of great teachers in the schools, but they're often handicapped or,
Mm-hmm.
their hands are tied. They have to teach to a certain test or a certain model where they're not able to pour into individual kids as much as they'd like.
Right.
They're not able to teach the way they see maybe best. And it's pretty, we found out during the same time, it's a very inefficient model. My daughter was quarantined for so many different times. She was in school 15 days in a trimester. And so we ended up pulling them out for a bit and going online. And by doing that, seeing the amount of curriculum and how little time it took for them to get through that, I realized at that time how inefficient the model is.
Yeah.
Despite great teachers, they're not allowed to express that greatness, I guess.
Right. And we had wonderful experiences when we were at Lakes with the teachers. There are good people in the public schools. And so I'm not trying to criticize the work that they're doing, but they are confined. Like they can't serve all of the kids the way that they would want to, or teach all of the kids the way that they would want to. But for us, it didn't fit any longer, and I couldn't do it. But I mean, we still have a lot of friends, in the public schools, and I'm happy that, a lot of those restrictions during the COVID time is gone now. But for us, it wasn't just about a mask either. It was more about allowing my kids to the freedom, right? The freedom to be themselves, the freedom to not have these restrictions or these regulations applied to them, even though they probably didn't realize it. But you are limited when you're a teacher in the public schools, just because that's how our education system is. So to allow them to be able to blossom and grow at their own level and at their own pace has been incredibly rewarding, I would say. And to have my daughter, my oldest, to like life sometimes and be happier and to not have to tolerate so many restrictions on her and just being like allowing her to kind of figure out and navigate her way. That's been good. And of course, I'm helping guide her and direct her and stuff. But I mean, she has blossomed and grown. And so that's probably like one of my major life accomplishments is helping my daughter to grow and to.
That's awesome. And at the same time, I know some of the others, that are there. I'm sure it's not just your family, it's 40. I think you were up to 60 or so.
Yeah, we started in this past school year with close to 60, but we lost a couple along the way, which it happens, sure.
But that's like, you've been able to help and the other parents that are involved and been able to help so many other kids.
Mm-hmm.
In a more personal way.
And they're good kids, right? They're just, sometimes they're just a little quirky because a lot of the kids, they just don't fit in that mold very well. And so we're a little high energy, the kids are.
Okay.
They're a little quirky and high energy, but it's great.
We find that in life really. I mean, none of us really fit into the same mold.
Right.
Everything's not an all you can fit, all in one solution. So that's great. So is that something you're looking to expand?
So we're down to, we did 3 days a week this past year, but we kind of have running into some legal issues being 3 days a week. And so we're down to 2 for this following school year. So if you're more than 3 days a week, or you're 3 days a week or more and you're a drop-off system, it's kind of more like a school than it is a homeschool co-op, even though the parent is still like the teacher and oversees all the education. We just provide support. But it's a little bit tricky regulatory-wise because, we got regulations. It would be nice if some of those weren't there, but yeah, so we're 2 days a week this coming school year, but we're kind of trying to figure out, because we have a couple different experiences too. Like we have different days that are devoted to different things. If we should separate that into 2 different nonprofits, because we do have some families that want this and some families that want this, and they don't do both.
Sure.
So they're not like a lot of the families aren't all 3 days of the week. They'll pick 1 or they'll pick 2 or something like that. And so
Nice.
we're trying to figure out and navigate the way, and it's just a lot of legal work that isn't always the funnest thing to learn and figure out, but
Right.
I'm working on it. So
Yeah, they can hold you back sometimes.
yeah.
So again, is that something where you're looking to grow, expand if people wanted to join?
Yeah, if
or
people want to,
consider?
if
How
they
do they
want to
reach?
join or consider, so they would get a hold of Shannon Hardiman. She's the one that does the intake for new families or prospective families. So
Great. So why don't we move on to one other area of service? So you've kind of served your family, served the business, served the community through the co-op, and now what other? You're also a county commissioner. So how did that come about? And
So back to those zoning ordinances, right? That was back in 2017 when my mind exploded with all of these regulations. I think it was 2017. Yeah. And so I had no experience, no friends, no nothing in government, but I went to my township and I just said, "Hey, I want to get involved." And they said, "Great. We've got some openings for the Planning Commission and for the Zoning Board of Appeals." So I applied and I started in 2019 or 2018 on the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Mhm.
And that's just a board that hears, "Oh, I can't comply to the zoning ordinance. So can I get an appeal?" And I can't, 2018 or 2019. I don't really remember. But I really liked my time at Cannon, and I liked helping the community and serving the community. So I ran for trustee in 2020, and I had no idea how to campaign.
Sure.
None. I was just like, I'm a voter. What would I want to see? And so I did Facebook ads, which if you ever want to run for office, do Facebook ads. I think it's a wonderful way to get the word out. I never knocked a single door.
Okay.
Not for my trustee race. I did for my commission race, and I did signs and I built myself a website and a Facebook page. So that's what I did. I ended up winning against all of trustee. There's 4 trustees for Cannon. Sometimes local municipalities only have 2, but so Cannon had 4, and there was 5 candidates running, and I beat everyone. I was like, "What? How did I?
Sure.
That's crazy." So I guess I did okay campaigning, even though I didn't know all of the laws about campaign finance, and I didn't have my paid for by on the
Okay.
bottom of my sign. So I learned that one the hard way, but oh well. So I ran for office. We had a resignation on the board, and so I ended up, I think I was sworn in September of 2020. And then I served there 2020, 2021. And then I ran for commission in 2022. Right? Yeah, that's how it was. And I ran for office for county, mostly because I was frustrated. I was frustrated by the last minute mask mandate, right?
Mhm.
I was frustrated with people not really advocating for a lot of our kids, especially those that, might not be able to wear a mask. And so I've been there at the county. That term started 2023, and it's 2024 now. So I am running for reelection. I would say that my time at the county has been incredibly challenging. I would say challenging with personal dynamics with people involved in the Republican Party. I really have enjoyed the mental challenge as
Mhm.
far as you have to learn very, very complex issues very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And I don't think people realize how complex even county government. Well, county government is an extension of the state. So at county government, you have to deal with some of the state stuff, and then you have to deal with some of the township city stuff. So it's a very complex government system, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know a ton yet, but
Yeah.
so I would say when I started my term in 2023, I did not know much and I had assumed a lot of wrong things. I kind of thought that all politicians in the county were bought and paid for, which was not the case at all. And I learned that. Um, there are good people still in local government. There are wonderful people actually in local government. And Kent County is pretty well run. Yeah, there are issues. Yeah, there's things that we have to fix. But for the most part, it's a decent place.
Yeah.
And they really do try to represent, the commissioners and even the countywide elected. They try to represent the people. And I get that it's a complex, overbearing government system, right? And kind of like the education system. I get that. And I get that there's a lot of red tape and you have to figure out your way and it's incredibly complex and a lot of it is a huge learning curve. I get that. But there is still good in our county government and they're not, sure, there's probably a little bit of corruption here and there, but most everyone is pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's always people that I like a little bit more than some other people, but
Sure.
that's how it is. So
So what are the roles of a county commissioner?
yeah, so as a county commissioner, you receive assignments, basically committee assignments. So when I started my role in 2023, my assignments were the overall commission, right? So that's your commission meeting, and that's what most people, when they think of a county commissioner, they just go to this meeting, right?
Mm-hmm.
They go to a couple a month. It's incredibly more than that.
Yeah.
So there's the county commission meeting, and then you're assigned to a standing committee. And a standing committee makes a ton of sense for our large county. So standing committee work is done before it goes to the commission. So it's very similar to how you have at our state, we have a House and a Senate, and things get voted on and then they're approved. Well, with a standing committee, we have the Legislative and Human Resources Committee, and then we have a Finance Committee. So the work gets done on those committees. So those are, 10 of us, right? Yeah, 10 each commissioners. And then those are also open to the public, right? Because there's a standing committee, so all of the Open Meetings Act applies. And that the work that goes to the commission gets done on those committee levels. Those are the two standing committees. So I'm on the legislative and HR right now, and I've actually been chair of subcommittees from the LHR. And I think that's fairly rare in the first term. And so I've worked very, very hard to build bridges and to try to prove myself. And I have gotten some, side assignments from that committee because you can always go, a subcommittee, or you could always, especially for the Legislative and Human Resources Committee, we have tons and tons of boards and committees and different things that we need people to be involved in, right? So you have like a KDL board, you have all of these different boards all around the county, and commissioners assign those members. And so we go through all of the applications. And so that's been a lot of work for me on the LHR committee and a lot of other commissioners on the LHR committee. So that's been a lot of the LHR. And then you also receive other committee assignments. So in 2023, I was assigned to the township county liaison. And so I met with the township supervisors, tried to update them on some of the county issues. They would let me know what's going on in the townships. And it was a liaison between the county and the townships. And I love a lot of the township supervisors are awesome. They're wonderful people. And a lot of them are kind of like the old school, like older man, or older men that have a lot of experience and knowledge. And I really appreciated hearing their experience and knowledge. And then in 2024, I was no longer the county township liaison. I let that one go. Another commissioner took it over, and I got Veterans Services. And I was really excited about that one. And I love Veterans Services. They are wonderful people. And they're just, they're raw, right? And they're not very political. And they're just good people. And they want to serve their country, or have served their country. Yeah. And they want to keep serving their country. And it's a really refreshing breath of air for someone in government, because they've told me too that not every commissioner, kind of fits in with us, because some, politicians or government people are just kind of staunchy and not really genuine, and kind of can just take the mask away and be just a genuine raw person. But I really enjoy that group. They're wonderful. And I got to help out a lot with the Memorial Day parade just recently. So I've just really enjoyed working with them and helping them. And I think they're okay with me now. They'll give me a hard time here and there, but it's fun and it's all in jest. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, if you can get a hard time or give a hard time, usually it's people that you like or respect, unless it's a real hard time.
Yeah.
So I think we've covered a lot today.
Yeah. Sorry. I
no,
blabbed.
What I'd say is, is there anything that you'd recommend for somebody that wants to help, wants to maybe get involved at a township or a county level? What kind of mindset and, what kind of first steps should they take?
So all of your townships and cities, I believe all of them, have paid positions already. And usually there's some openings here and there, which is Planning Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very, very small amount of pay, and it's per meeting. Usually it's just a small stipend, like $50 or something. But it's a way to start, and it's a way to get your foot in the door. I think that's a better way to go and to learn than to try to get involved, especially right now, with the county party, just because our county party is a little messy right now. I think going to your local municipality and learning government and just getting your foot in the door and serving on a committee, even the Parks and Rec committee or something that you're passionate about, they want community members. Some of them, Parks and Rec, I don't think is paid, but that's fine. But that's a great way to start. And then once you get your foot in the door a little bit and start to meet people, run for a local office. Trustee is only usually a couple of meetings every month in the evening, and you get a couple $1,000 every year too. I mean, it's not bad pay for what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would just say, go to your township, go to your city, go to your village and say, hey, I want to get involved. This is my experience. This is my skills. What do you think you need help with? And learn.
Great.
That's one of my frustrations in being involved right now is people get involved in government and they want to change everything right away. And I get it. I absolutely get it. But at the same time, you have to humble yourself and realize you don't know that much at first. And you have to learn before you can lead. And that's been kind of my mantra like the last year or two of just step back and learn first and then try to lead. Because we've got a lot of wonderful, passionate people involved. And I'm grateful that people are fired up and they want to get involved in government. Sincerely, that's what we need. But at the same time, if you don't have the good experience and knowledge, and it's not even about experience necessarily, it's about knowledge and it's about humility, right?
Mm-hmm.
To be effective, you can't lead an initiative. You can't try to change the culture or the government system. It is complex. Like I rattled on about just Network 180. And you have to approach it with humility. You have to approach it with a servant's heart. If I were in government for my own pride, I wouldn't be in government because it's a horrible, horrible job. Sincerely, people call me evil. They think I'm corrupt. I've had death threats. It's the worst job, especially commissioner.
Sure.
Because I probably put in, some weeks I put in 20 hours. Some weeks I only put in 5 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
You're paid for about 10 hours a week.
Yep.
And my pay has no benefits. So I use all of my pay, which is $25,000, for my health insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get I get like $100 or $200 every pay period. So I might make $400 a month.
Yeah.
So when people think that, I'm an elite politician getting all this money, no, I mean, I can make so much more money if I quit this silly public service job where everyone thinks I'm evil and they hate me just because I'm in an elected office. That, I'm not doing this for myself. It makes zero sense for me for a pride thing.
Right.
And so to interact with people right away that assume I'm part of a corrupt political agenda or something, I mean, it's really frustrating and it's really discouraging. And I get it. I get that there's so much corruption, especially on state, federal level. I get it. And I'm there too. But I'm still a mom with 3 kids and a wife and, and I'm still doing all these other things.
Business owner, co-op manager.
And I'm trying to serve my community. That's seriously all why I'm in government. I want to serve my community. And I think I have a good skill set and a good mind for it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like campaigning. I have to campaign right now. I'm running for reelection. And I'm not a good saleswoman. I've never been a good saleswoman. I don't like asking people for money. But at the end of the day, I don't care if I win or if I lose. I don't, because I'm not doing it for myself. If I lose, that's a win for me. But
Sure.
I mean,
Financially
as far as like selfish reasons
Right.
go. But if I win and the people want me there, then I'll do it. I'll do a good job. I put in the required hours. I put in the required effort, more so, I would
Right.
say. Like, it's not just you sit back and you vote and you're done, and a lot of people only look at your voting record. And I do have a very conservative voting record. I'd say that, but they only look at that and they don't realize all of the other stuff that goes into doing it. So it can be frustrating. And I get it that people are discouraged and irritated and passionate and all of these things, but mind over emotions, right? You have to be able to limit yourself of how reactionary you can be sometimes, or else we're screwed, right? I mean, you can't always react to stuff with your emotions because
There's so much deeper levels. There's always way more to the story. And when there's 2 sides, there's often many in between.
Sure. And I will say too, being involved in government on a little bit more deep level, especially more than city and township, you do see, especially like because you interact with the state a little bit, you do see some corruption for sure. And you do have to make votes because I don't think I've made a ton of votes, but it's honestly, in my opinion, sometimes it's a vote between bad and worse.
Yeah.
And
Because you only have certain parameters, I imagine, to work
Right.
within.
right. And sometimes there's no winnable consequence. And because you're choosing between bad and worse, as far as like a good consequence.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that discourages a lot of people, especially from being involved, right? And
Yeah.
let's be frank, like
I feel that
it
way.
sucks, right? It's horrible to have to make a decision that you don't want to do. But if I don't make that decision, then something worse might happen, right?
Right.
And so it's hard for me when we have this air of self-righteousness in the churches and they look at politics and then they have their nose in the air and they are not willing to get their hands dirty, right? Because I have to make some bad calls and I'm human and I make mistakes too. So my hands are a little dirty just because they have to be if you're involved in this.
Sure.
But at the same time, there's redemption in Jesus Christ, right? If the church believes that, then we can be washed clean continually. You have to wade in a swamp, right? Trump always says it's swamp.
Sure.
And it is. And it's murky waters and you can't see clearly. And you come out of the swamp and you've got swamp dew on you. And you're going to have swamp dew on you, especially if you're involved in the state or even maybe a little bit with the county, but not as much. But people aren't willing to get dirty. They are so self-righteous and so against allowing yourself to fail, maybe back to that,
Sure.
that they won't go in the swamp.
It's a lot easier to be the person in the stands yelling and screaming at the man
Right.
in the arena, to use the Teddy Roosevelt quote.
Yep.
And it's so much harder to be in the arena
Yeah.
battling.
Yeah. And I don't think people understand that when you look at politics, everyone, even the people that you like, are in the swamp, right? I mean, some of them, I hope after this next term, it's a 4-year term, I need to get out of it. Just because if you're in that swamp for too long, in my opinion, you can kind of look swampy.
Sure.
And if you don't have time away from it and allow yourself to recenter and reestablish your foundational values and, make sure your roots are solid and everything, you are risking your character a little bit. And you have to be willing to risk your character a little bit to go into the swamp. But churches aren't really willing to do that. And I get really frustrated because they say that they have this strong faith in God. And then they're like, oh, I don't think I could do that. I don't think I could come out of that and be a good person. And I'm just thinking, no, I don't know if I can either. I'll be honest. I don't know. But I know that God's grace is sufficient for me. And I know his power is made perfect in weakness. If my faith is strong enough, if I know God's promises and I believe them to be true, then I can come out of the swamp and be washed clean, right? And it's not about your own self-righteousness. It's not about being clean. It's not about being able to always make the best or the good decisions. It's about relying on Jesus to wash you and clean you and to make sure that you can continue to wade in the swamp when you have to, but can come out clean.
Yeah.
So I get really discouraged when the churches are so against getting involved because it seems like they are. And then those that do get involved are very passionate, which is wonderful again, but then they have this expectation of I have to always be clean and I can't, like, this is so corrupt, I'm not going to do it. And they get really boisterous, in which I get it again. But I don't know.
Yeah, I noticed I have friends in California, and their election system is interesting. They've had different challenges in how they open it up. They can ballot harvest. So you could go around the neighborhoods and just take ballots and do as you wish with them, essentially. Now, some of the churches have been very against that. And some are actually now willing, because they're speaking up for themselves as a whole, or as a church, or as a group. So I think, they're starting to do some of that as well, because they've
Sure.
stayed out of it for a long time.
Yeah.
Not believing it's a great thing to do necessarily, to be involved in politics. But
Yeah, well, they let the culture go to hell.
Yeah.
With not being
and so
involved.
now they kind of have to in
Mhm.
order to stand up for their own values.
And that's great and that's wonderful, but there is still rule of law, right? So we do have to work within the restraints of the law.
Yeah.
And if you break the law, there's consequences. But when the law confines you to making that choice between bad and worse,
Right.
there's a no good solution. So I don't know. It's just frustrating to me when people don't realize how tricky the waters are.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we can, turn that around, get more people involved.
Yeah.
Um,
And you got to learn. You got to like to be effective. You have to spend a couple of years just learning the system and learning how it all works, because there's no way that you can make any gains unless you do the hard work of figuring it out first.
yeah. Real quick before we wrap up, is there anything, do you think, that is a way to like shorten that learning curve? Because really, I think that's scary for a lot of people.
It is.
Even like rules of how meetings are run. It just seems like there would be a way to be much more efficient educating people on how the systems work, how they can make a more immediate change. And again, whether it's intentional that government is so inefficient and so layered and broad, or if it's just by accident because it's just been addition on addition on addition on addition on addition that never really has a master plan of efficiency.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it's both. I think the public has been incredibly comfortable and disengaged, really, since, I don't know,
most of my lifetime, frankly.
I would say 70s or so.
I'm almost 50.
Yeah. And then I would say there have been people that have taken it to their advantage and have made bad decisions. I I don't think the intention for 99% of politicians is to be corrupt initially. It ends up
Sure.
that way because the swamp is swampy.
Yeah.
But I think to shorten the learning curve, there are like some educational like programs and stuff. I mean, you could do like a political science stuff, but honestly, just go and do it. That's kind of been how I've
Sure.
lived my life a little bit. Just
Yeah.
go to your township, learn, get involved. Any federal change starts at a local level. So you start with the most local, and hopefully that affects change, further up the line.
Great. I
Yeah.
think we're good.
Okay.
Want to, wrapping up with a few things. What have we learned here?
What have we
We've learned a
learned?
lot.
We've learned
We've covered a lot.
we've learned all the intricacies, not all of the
Yeah.
intricacies with Network 180, but a few. So
Lifelong takeaways, I guess.
lifelong takeaways, just do it. Get out there, throw yourself out there, fail, and then throw yourself out there again and succeed. Get back up, dust yourself off. Keep trying.
I think that's great advice. All right, Katie. Anything else on how people can reach you in terms of your campaign or to support
Yeah.
or the co-op?
Yeah, you can reach out to me. My number's on my website. You can Google me.
Is that katiedeboer.com?
It's Katie for Kent with the number 4.
Number 4.
And then I'm on Facebook. You can call me.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thanks for coming on.
Thank you,
and,
Alden. Thanks
thank
for
you
the
guys for
time.
joining us. See you next time.
They tell me that I'm never gonna make it. They want me to do something that could make sense. They hate when I